times I will reach over and turn it off. That's not true. Hey, we shall really. It's hard. Yeah, and it works.
It's not good.
Yeah, he got some.
I got 4-wheel drive.
How you doing?
You don't have 4-wheel drive. That's not the car.
Just leave it alone.
So I got up to
Oh, he just got like, I'll see her in the back and she's like, paid to speak. It was kind of put on. It said that the results test on the person until.
what are we going to do
Sent
with
it
white
to the
people?
state.
We could probably
She couldn't.
It's kind of a fun meeting, actually.
I mean, it was clear day, but she always said,
Are we ready? Okay. Yes.
my wife, tenor was everything changed.
We will call the Finance Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 1st to order. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Legess?
Present.
Mr. Washington?
Present.
Mr. Vickery? Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Present.
Mr. Scott? Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Present.
Mr. Einfeld? Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Payton?
Present.
Mr. Ritter?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
We have a quorum. Mr. Scott?
Thank you.
I have one public comment. Is there any other public comment to be made today? Okay. Any other public comment? If none, then Aisha Shields would like to address the committee.
Good morning. My name is Aisha Shields. I'm the clerk for the Village of Hopkins Park, and I'm here on behalf of Mayor Mark Hodge, who would have liked to be here, but he's out of town on other business. In regards to the proposed policing contract, the policing agreement between the Village of Hopkins Park and the Kankakee County Sheriff, I just want to acknowledge that this will be something positive for our community, and we want to thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Two sets of minutes were dispersed, the December 28th, 2016 and January 25th, 2017. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Okay. Mr. Hess, and second? All right, Mr. Legess. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? All right, motion carries. We will go to the County Auditor's Office with Mr. Lee. We'll entertain a motion to combine and approve the monthly claims. Okay, Mr. Washington first, Mr. Payton second, and we will do a roll call vote.
Who's the second one, Jason?
Mr. Washington.
Who's the next person?
I'm sorry, Mr. Payton.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Legess?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Just want to draw a few things to your attention as we look at our claims. As you all know, that claims are a cash-based transaction, and so when we look at the claims, this is cash that's going out. We said last month that we thought the spending in January would be a little higher due to the timing of the TAWs, and as you can see, we did catch up a lot of our accounts payable, and that's why our number for January of 2017 is higher than what's typically traditional. The same is true if you look at I've got a chart there for you to kind of give you an idea of the average spend every 3 months. It's a rolling 3 months, and in a 3-year comparison, January to January of 14, 15, and 16. And then at the bottom, you can kind of see where it looks like there's a trend where it's upticking, but again, that's mainly the timing of the TAWs. But just to give you a visual representation of the data so that you can kind of see how we're trending in terms of the accounts payable when it comes to claims. Are there any questions that I can answer about that? Well, at this time, then I know that Chairman Wheeler has some things to mention about the credit cards, but I will just insert here the dashboard that you see as part of your packet as well. Couple of things to note. This is FY16 for the total credit card spending. You'll see that the months that are indicated in terms of they're ranked 1 through 12 in terms of dollar value spent, and the times in which the county was short on cash, there's a correlation between the increase in credit card expenditures. And so you can kind of see where Chairman Wheeler will talk about some of the things that we want to do to minimize that type of outlay of cash. The other thing is in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that it says default no account and no department. That's a line where we basically every time a credit card expense happens, we put it in a line that's in the auditor's office. I believe it's $99,550, and then through the journal voucher process, we farm those expenditures back out to the respective departments. So it may look like there's a lot of charges unaccounted for, but they really are not. This was done before we got everything accounted for in the respective departments. So just make note of that if you would, please.
Thank you. I did have a question. What's your intent on making these dashboards available to either the board member or the public? What's your short, maybe long-term plan for that?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, my goal is to get these, they are submitted, they're part of the claims report. I believe they're on page 4 of the claims report, and also they will be available on the auditor's website once we get all of that information updated. So, and of course, if anyone wants to request them, I'll be more than happy to email them to you as well.
Thank you. It's helpful to look at that at a glance to be able to see a lot of this information. So, moving on, I guess, to the credit card discussion. We've had 2 separate meetings with department heads over the past week and a half or so regarding credit cards. It's a necessary evil, if you will, at times for credit cards. You can see how the expense seems to dramatically increase at the times of the year where we're short of cash and we start getting out there on payables. Because we are bound to be paying these bills within 30 days, it becomes problematic because it's a direct hit to cash flow. It's immediate. And so as we see this increase, it's really debilitating on the cash flow side of things. So we have encouraged, department heads over the past couple weeks to try to put off any unnecessary travel, any unnecessary training, anything that is not time dependent or already scheduled in the pipeline. We don't want to have people lose their refunds on plane tickets or anything like that. That would be silly. But what we're trying to do is to push those expenses to be incurred in July, and so we can get those into the actual payment funnel where we have cash. The other side of it is that we're looking for to curb those expenses going into the time, because as you'll see later in the presentation, we are extremely strapped for cash right now. It's very, very tight. Almost, well, as it stands right now, as the time I'm speaking to you, we are in a hole. And this is, April, May, June hole. So it's not next year, it's this year. So we will talk later about some of those solutions, but the credit card usage is a critical part of that, because anything that we do now, we don't want to give away in spending money through credit cards, which are payable in 30 days. So you will see also down the road that we are not expanding our payables list. It's actually better than it has been in a long time. We're keeping up with our vendors a lot better than we have. but that has an impact as well on cash. So we're trying to do things so we're a good trading partner with the people that do services for the county, but knowing that we have an immediate need for access to cash. That's why we're taking these credit card steps as we are. So we are, for all non-essential personnel, we are turning off the cards. They pretty much are anyway. They were down to $1. But for emergency response, we need to have some cards on. The people that, you know, God forbid if a tornado were to come through here, we have to be able to go out and buy generators and things like that. Those cards will be left on. Department heads are going to keep their cards on. So if somebody has to have a spend, they're going to go to the department head. We're not going to have multiple people within the department heads, within reason, obviously, as I just mentioned. So is there any questions about that?
It's Mr. C. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is for Mr. Lee or for Mr. Wheeler. What type of expenditures, when we're in a cash-strapped scenario, are we buying, are we using credit cards for? Is this office supplies? Is this daily operations stuff? Or is this just regular business, pay no mind to the situation of their finances?
I will.
Because then that might lead into the next question of what departments are these?
Sure, and I think that dashboard that you know, we haven't got it broken down by what the spends are on that dashboard, but I will say that most departments are no longer, they don't have water contracts, they don't have newspaper subscriptions coming to their office. Most of the people have eliminated those types of things already. You know that our office upstairs, you guys want a cup of coffee, a quarter goes in the jar.
Right.
You know, so it's like that, and that is the way it is. So we're looking at the future, and we're trying to figure out, you know, being the short-term future, what are we going to do to actually stop that? Now, when you speak to something that is actually really good. If we have a vendor, let's say for paper products, we're going to need a secondary vendor because we're going to try to keep up with the bills for the current vendor as much as possible. But we can't go to the credit card. We have to get a secondary vendor.
To start a new Yeah, I understand that. That's why I was asking.
Very important. That's a very important.
Because that's daily operation business, and
Exactly.
you need paper sometimes. You need ink pens. You need staplers.
Exactly. I would say that non-essential spending has already gone by the wayside.
Okay.
For most departments don't have that. We obviously let department heads, the electeds, run their offices the way that they run them. That's what the people give them the purview to do. We allocate money and they do that accordingly. I don't see any extra money around. We're as thin to the bone as we possibly can be. The only thing we need to do is have secondary accounts instead of credit cards.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the credit card side? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jake. All right, we will now go to the insurance and HR staffing level reports with Ms. Mackin.
Good morning. Okay, the staffing report, if everybody is looking at that, it's a very colorful report this month. The time frame is from January 25th through February 28th. Just a reminder, the left-hand side is where we were as far as staff count as of last month, as of January 24th. And then the right-hand side has your new hires and termination movement that's gone on during the time frame of January 25th through February 28th. Although there's a lot of movement, you can see at the bottom that our total staff count in these departments was up to 483. And this month, we are at 481. So not a big change there. If you want to go through each department, the administration staff, we are done with the one part-time, which Annie was helping with the transition for Joanne into payroll. That is completed, so we are at our full 3 full-time associates. The assessor had 1 full-time employee that retired, so his count is down to 5. 911 hired 1 part-time person, so their count is up to 31. The maintenance has hired 1 full-time person, bringing his count to 12. Recorder department hired 1 full-time person, bringing that count to 5. Our sheriff deputies had 1 full-time person retire, bringing his count to 39. Vehicle maintenance, you can see I took it down to 0, but I want to explain under the EMA, the Emergency Management Agency, there's been a person that moved from vehicle maintenance into that position. So he's still kind of flowing back and forth as needed. And the sheriff correction officers, we had 1 full-time retire, so we're down to 104. The medical staff really is just fluctuating. Part-time went to full-time, a full-time went to part-time, so the count stayed the same at 25. And the treasurer has 1 part-time removed and then hired a part-time, so that count stayed the same. And that's the staffing report for this month.
Any questions for Lynn? Yeah. What, number 6, Children?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question, when the 911 folks from out in Bourbonnais moved some of their jobs out to CanCom, how are those, is Bourbonnais paying them, or how are their salaries calculated into this?
I am not sure on that. Sheriff, did you?
Actually, when Bourbonnais, when they combined, they thought at one point there was going to be 6 employees come over, and ultimately there ended up being 1.
1.
So there was 1. Bourbonnais is paying for dispatch services, so however much money that is that covers their dispatch, it covers the entire dispatch, not just this person's salary. But there was only 1 Bourbonnais dispatcher that came over during the transition.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lynn?
Okay, before I finish up, I wanted to go through, you also have a sheet there of United Healthcare plans. Just wanted to kind of update the committee, give you a look at the plans before open enrollment and now where we are after open enrollment, now that things have settled in. You can see at the bottom, our employee count prior to open enrollment was at 359 on insurance, and now it is at 362. So not a lot of movement there, although we had a lot of movement within the plans. We, as you know, go out and do a lot of meetings during open enrollment time. We take the time on phone calls, do everything we can to assist the employees to try and clear what each plan is so they can make the right decision for their health option. And Mike Lynch really does an excellent job during that time in explaining those plans. And as you know, we also went an extra month in making sure they understood the HRA with the new ACA guidelines for the out-of-pocket. There seemed to be a little confusion after open enrollment, so we took that extra time to make sure everything was fine and nobody moved in their plans. So I thought it'd be of interest to you to look at it. If you look over on the left-hand side, it says 2016 year. We had 2 HRAs last year, so I combined them so you could get a good look at the comparison to last year to this year's HRA. So last year we had 311 in the HRA plan. This year it changed to 262. The HSAs, we do have the 2. We have the Core and the Choice Plus Network. There wasn't a lot of movement in the Core. We had 27 in comparison to 22 this year. But there was big movement in the HSA Choice Plus. We had 7 that was enrolled in it last year, and it went to 30 this year. And then the plan that is the exact same as the HRA plan, but it does not have that health reimbursement arrangement attached to it. We were at 14, and it upped to 21 this year. And the big change to me was we brought back the HMO plan this year, and we had 27 that went to that plan. So that was a change for me that was a little unexpected. But I wanted to give you a good look at where we were. I think it's kudos to the county for giving the employees that many options. Sometimes I know it's overwhelming, but I think it also helps them make the right decision for their health needs. And, you know, we do a lot during that open enrollment time to make sure they understand the plans and they get all the information. So as adults, we can all make that decision that's correct for us. So that's all I wanted to go over. Is there any questions there?
Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree, it's good that we offer this many plans that compliment HR for the work they did in terms of meeting with the employees. I would ask, with the shifts that occurred in the HSAs and with that HMO, does that have any kind of impact in terms of what our costs are in terms of health insurance, the portion we're paying?
Each plan is different, yes. When you had them move out of one plan, like the HRA, yes, it does make a big difference. We might see our funding in an HRA go down in comparison to your premium amounts.
Thank you.
If I could, I'd like to.
Piggyback on that, there's two answers to that. Yes, the premium is reduced, so that our contribution to that premium is less. But the big thing is the employees are becoming invested in their healthcare choices. They're not using their health plan like a punch card. You know, they're actually looking at the HSAs and their contribution levels, and they're seeing how much they're using it and making smarter choices for what they're doing with their health plan. The HMO is on the managed care side of things is a big step because the doctors are here locally. They've agreed to those rates. It's a robust network that includes Chicago, but we've got employees making good choices with the plans that are offered, and that saves us both a lot of money. So it'll manifest over the next year or two on what that plays out. But on the front end, yes, premium savings, you bet, for the county and for the employee. So, Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't remember. Did we ever institute like a spousal carve-out if they have insurance elsewhere on the health plans?
Not at this time.
Okay. I know we were talking about that last year. Has that been brought back to the table? I know a lot of employers are doing it in the business space, and they're doing it for all, financial reasons. Is that something that was brought back to the table at all or discussed?
It was something that was discussed. It is something because of our unions and that we will have to sit down and discuss in detail with them too.
Okay. All right. Nope. Great.
Any other questions any other questions for Lynn? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now look at the County Treasurer's Office, Mr. Africano. And I will entertain a motion to combine and approve the County Treasurer's Report, the County Collector's Report, and the monthly resolutions for January and February 2017. Mr. Seroy, do I have a second? Mr. Ritter? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairman. Just a few things. The Thursday opening at the Treasurer's Office is working well. We're collecting 4 installment taxes right now. It seems to be working. Everybody's excited for the move, which I'm told will happen near the first week in April. So if anybody's not seen the space downstairs, I would say go look at it. It looks great. I think it's going to be really helpful to the taxpayers to not tell them you're in the wrong place, walk a block. They'll get all their answers at one stop. So that's moving forward. We're working on a revamp of the website right now, and we are starting to get prepared for main tax season, because it's our intention, and I've discussed this with Chairman Wheeler, to try to get a distribution as soon as possible. I believe Treasurer Allen distributed in June, although Treasurer Frechette had a policy of not distributing before July 1. We're going to try to be as early in June as possible, because I think the county can use the resources. And I continue to work with Steve McCarty a lot, and with Auditor Lee to make sure the office is in compliance. Other than that, I'd entertain questions. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I wanted to know, the old building, what's the intent of it after you move downstairs?
That I can't answer, but I think someone here probably could.
That building, one of the major impetus for us to move is because it's basically falling apart. The roof is bad, the HVAC units, I think we got one working out of 3, or I can't remember what it is, 2, yeah. And we have issues with the tunnel filling up with sand. It's basically, if it's, as they say, it's worth more dead than alive at this point, really. But we'll take a look at that. If at some point we may need file storage, I've kept that in the back of my head, because then we won't have to heat and cool it as much as we need to right now, just to keep it above freezing. So that's in the back of my head. If we have long-term file storage, maybe it's worth patching a roof, then we don't have to fix the other things. So, but that's down the road for building and grounds to talk about. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Treasurer Africano? Yes, Mr. Searoy.
Is there any truth to the rumor that they're gonna still leave the plastic on when you get downstairs?
I'm hoping.
Good luck with the move.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 7 on the Finance Department with Mr. McCarty.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're going to do this a little differently today. Kind of take a team approach to this. I'll try not to step on anybody's toes here since I'm up here. So we'll, as we explain this in the input here. So we put together a presentation. We also have it up on the screen. I wanted to just take a short trip down memory lane here. It kind of explains, you know, how we got to this situation, and the graph. I need to go to the graph, please. We looked at this as a line graph in December meeting, and this is the bar graph equivalent, in depicting that since 2011, the decrease in our revenues, which is nearly $8 million in that time frame that you're looking at. The revenues dropped out before the expenses could also drop to match. and that created in the general fund a deficit of $4.8 million. Along with that comes the challenges that we've discussed thoroughly over the years, and we're about ready to discuss again, is our cash flow. Everything that takes place right now in the general fund has to be done with borrowed funds. And the sources of those are tax anticipation warrants, interfund borrowing, and in an extent, the accounts receivable discussion, or accounts payable, excuse me, discussion that we're also going to expand on. Jake already gave you some information on. And, you know, the ripple effect, it has gone out into the community with the accounts payable effect of us and the timing of us being able to meet our obligations. So this time of year, December through July, without any property tax distribution is our biggest challenge. And the spreadsheets that you have attached are designed and set up to try to catch the trend before it becomes an emergency. And as it plugs in, as it goes, you know, we try to catch it because we are so volatile right now in this time of year. So that's a short history of where we're at, and we're also susceptible on the accounts receivable side. If we go to the next page or slide. Oh,
I just, before we move on, I wanted to mention, if you look at our estimated year end this year, we're not completely done with the audit, but the first time since 2011 that we're close to in balance. We have a surplus, albeit very, very small. If you look at that, our revenues, as mentioned, they have fallen, and our expenses have also come down roughly $10 million as well. So unfortunately, the revenues fell faster than the expense cuts did, and we're still adapting to that. But I think it speaks to what we tried to do last year in 16, to come in as close as we did, and we're actually in a positive situation for the first time in quite a while. So while we don't want to sit here and pat ourselves on the back, it is a good trend which way we're heading. So I just want to mention that.
So the next document in the package is an update to accounts receivable, and all of us are aware of the conversations going on down at the state with the budget, and that conversation has affected us in delaying more than usual some salary reimbursement from the state. 4 to 5 months has been fairly common. It has grown. We're now at 7, and as we cross February, 8 now. So this is a major impact, being at $1.1 million of accounts receivable owed to us by the state, you know, at this time. So our cash flow situation is very dependent on regular receipts as well as the borrowing. And when the regular receipts, we're very vulnerable and susceptible. So basically, taking this information, I plugged it in to the cash flow spreadsheet I keep an eye on, and you know, we look at this. Please, you know, the negatives are what created the conversation. So we're not trying to say that we're absolutely going to miss, you know, a payroll or something, but this is what this spreadsheet, the draft without any other borrowing, is what led to the discussion of do we hypothetically need a plan B here if this state situation continues as it is, as well as, you know, the other trends that we have and that we've updated, both on inflows and outflows. It compounded itself, if you will, into where April very tight, May and June getting out there. So this is what led to the discussion of the trends right now in our volatile situation are not good, and we have to address it before it becomes an emergency. And so with 3 payrolls in March, the first one is this week, we had to start this conversation that we have today. It's not something we want to do, but unfortunately with our situation and the state withholding funds from us, it's unfortunately what we have to do in order to get to the first distributions both in June and July, the early distribution in June and the major distribution in July. So with plugging in, I'm sorry to get this.
There is one other thing that the board or finance needs to understand here, and it involves our liability insurance. You remember last year we took a move. We saved ourselves quite a bit of money to a company who's been working out just fine for us as far as claims go and all of that. Everything seems to be working great on that end of things. What I found out in, oh geez, it must have been mid-January till the end of January, previous administration had agreed to pay the whole year's bill within the first 6 months of the year at the exact same time when we don't have money because we don't have taxes coming in. The problem is they didn't tell anybody. Nobody was aware that these bills were all going to come due. And I don't mind saying this to you now in a public way because frankly it put this county and the citizens here to very much a disservice. We had 25% of that bill of the 1.1 million come due in December, and I got the invoices in January. Then monthly payments all the way until July, and then we were done. Unfortunately, we were done before it even started as far as cash flow goes. So we did work something out with the insurance company. Typically in the past, by the way, the previous insurance company we would pay in the last part of the year when we had those resources. So we had even budgeted, Steve had budgeted that way. He didn't know, I didn't know, Mr. Lear didn't know, nobody knew that this was set up in this manner. And so we reacted. Unfortunately, the cash flow, anywhere between $400,000 and $500,000 has been yanked out from under our feet because we have to honor at least a portion of that premium between now and then. So I want to let you as a finance committee know that that was unpredicted revenue that went right out, or unpredicted cash that went right out the window. And that impacts everything else that we're talking about here. So you deserve to know that. So, and then we can move on accordingly.
Next slide. I'll jump in. One of the things I'd like to add is when we look at what we're owed, this is a graphical representation from the state of Illinois, the $1.14 million, coupled with the liability insurance expense that we incurred, you're looking at a significant impact to cash flow that we just, we could not do anything with. I mean, it just, it is really bad. I don't know of any other way to put it. It's really bad. And so when we continue the discussion about what our plan B is, as Steve alluded to, keep this number in mind, what we owe the state, or excuse me, what the state owes us, and the $250,000 that Andy talked about along with the monthly payments. Next slide, please. One of the things I would like to point out is we have, as you can see, as of November 30th, for the past 3 years, our accounts payable has been decreasing. So in other words, we have really been working hard, and we have to definitely give credit where credit's due with Steve and the finance committee as we look at expenses, or excuse me, accounts payable have been more current over the last 3 years. And that's something that's taken a lot of work to try and make sure that our vendors know that we recognize the fact that our financial woes do put pressure on them. And so we are working very hard to try to make sure that accounts payable doesn't get so out of control. And you can see that as of November 30th of 14, 15, and 16, we've seen that accounts payable shrink. So I wanted to note that as well.
And I think that directly, if I could, Mr. Chairman, it speaks to the hard work that Mr. McCarty is doing to balance all of this, because cash flow goes right through his desk. it's his bane of existence, if you will. He probably wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about it like I do, unfortunately. But that's the major juggling act that he has going right now. We're working on the long-term planning, and Steve is dealing with today in a very, very efficient manner. So I personally thank you for that. So as we move forward, I just want to mention that.
Ms. Hildebrand.
Thank you. Just a quick question. The large jump there between 13 to 14, we're about 2 million. What was that from, or what caused that?
Yeah, it's depicted on the graph as well. In 14, fiscal year 14, we had a $3 million deficit. And that 14 started when the cash really got tight. And through that drop and through the timing of the drop in revenue versus the expense still going on, that is the reason in that particular year that everything jumped. As the $3 million deficit, you know, is what threw AP and everything off. You know, and we recovered, and you know, with and it also corresponds, the amount of outstanding AP also corresponds with that we have cut nearly $10 million out in that same time frame. And I will add that even though you know, this is a tough situation, the outside financial world, like Bernardi Securities, underwriters, Moody's, the folks that we talk to that deal with all kinds of levels of different government levels, this is an unheard of change in the short period of time that it took place. And at this point, what we have accomplished, you know, they've shared with us that there are other governments worse than we are. That's hard to believe or feel or understand or believe. But so we really should be proud that, you know, this change is something that we didn't want. We didn't realize the scope of what was going to change when the sales tax and, you know, everything hit at the same time with our two largest revenues. But the fact that we haven't missed the payroll, you know, our vendors probably beg to differ as far as the impact to them, but the balancing act has been, you know, very difficult. But you know, everybody has worked together to get to this point. And unfortunately, yeah, we have another conversation here with making sure we get to July with this situation. So, I don't know if there's any other questions before we move on to
Probably the next one.
So then the second cash flow analysis sheet is part of the Plan B, if you will. Plugging in, we reached out and had a conversation with Mark Rogers with the Highway Department to find out if there were funds in a short-term situation that.
Steve, if I could, we still have Plan A up here where we're.
Oh, we're on Plan A. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to make sure everybody had a good look at where we're at right now before the solution. It's important that we actually describe accurately what the trend is, even at predicted revenues from our DHS detainee programs, with the marshals and everything going on. I wanted to make sure everybody had a clear snapshot of what we're facing before we talk about the solution. And that's what I want to hold you off on that, because, you know, if we look at mainly April, okay, you know, our inflows and outflows on cash, it gets pretty tight. We're down to $58,000 left after that month, and typically we know how things change quickly. That may fall into the negative as well. For sure, May anticipated, you know, ending cash balance. This is cash flow. This is inability to pay for either a vendor or our employees. Negative $750,000. And in June, even with an early disbursement from the Treasurer's office, it would still be in the negative at $265. So this is why I've been in somewhat of a bad mood the last month, because we saw this coming and we were trying to figure out what the most efficient way to fix this problem was without it compounding, robbing Peter to pay Paul, who's going to be back later in the year to get their money back. So we tried to figure out exactly what would be the best way to approach this, and we had a couple of different angles. And what Steve is going to talk about now is what we kind of came up with as a team, working with certain department heads, and looking at a longer range solution to a couple of different problems that we'll talk about. So, sorry about that, Steve.
No, it's okay. Of course, I want to see positive numbers on a spreadsheet as soon as I can, so I jumped to that one. Okay, so yeah, we can go to the next one. All right. So the only difference between the two spreadsheets, the draft with the additional highway interfund borrowing is they updated and provided you with actual through Monday, this past Monday, 2/27, of what's transacted, both with like the bed rental and the miscellaneous receipts. The miscellaneous receipts line on the inflows is primarily impacted by the state, thus showing the continued decline, and with them beginning to withhold income tax, which seems to be getting later and later. That's probably one of the main reasons where we're at right now as well, at 1.5 million instead of 1.7 million. So, and then the inmate billing right now has been at around 777,000. And as you can see, that's been for the last few months. But the timing of that has been a little bit, it's caught itself up, and I believe it'll be more consistent. So that's why you're seeing a little bit different, the numbers there with the inmate. But we believe we'll see that 777,000 going forward, unless there's other changes that were to take place with that. So, and then as you can see, there have been some trend changes in payroll numbers. You can see October, November, similar and different from what August was. September is a 3 payroll. And then you see in December and January, another slight change. So we've come down a little bit in total for February. So again, I watch this real close. 1 month, I don't try to call it a trend, but I'm watching it. 2 months, then I try to, we'll see how does this fit in if these flows were to keep going. So, and we did have a spike in the IMRF payment for February. That is due to there was 2 retro payouts that took place, and also a retirement situation. So going forward, I believe those are unique to just January, and we'll continue to watch that as far as trending and averages going forward. So that's some of the update, and then the other change from the previous spreadsheet was adding $1 million of interfund borrowing in April, and then paying it back in July. So a short-term loan, interfund borrowing loan from highway funds, and then paying it back in the short term in July in full amount. Plus, Andy, I don't know if you want to expand on.
Sure. We have one of the things that happened when somebody had mentioned the decline. I think it was Mr. Hildebrand talked about that decline in payables went up, and that period in 13, 14, where things took a dive. That was at the same time that we had borrowed $3 million from the highway department, and have yet to return that payment. We have since taken a little bit more, and one of the things that we as a board, I know Mr. McConnell's talked about it, and Mr. Seroy, we've all kind of said we can't let that continue. And our auditor's saying you have to show a plan to repay this money. So if we are going to do this again, and this is something that I talked to Mark Rogers about, we don't have a lot to repay, but we want to do something. This 1.1 million, the 0.1 is not interest. That's a repayment on the principal that we've already borrowed. We have to demonstrate to only ourselves, to the public, and also the highway department and the auditors that we're serious about wanting to pay that back. We just don't have it yet, but we want to take baby steps until we can start jogging. And so that's what we're asking this committee for. We're not just going to ask for it, we're going to put it in writing. We want a resolution. We want to have it be that we're in second position, because obviously our tax anticipation warrants come first, we're bound by that. But as soon as we're done with that, the next person to get paid would be the highway department in July, just to get us through this cash time period. So that's why we brought it back to committee to say, look, we're just not gonna say it. We're gonna make it so it's impossible for us not to do what we're making the commitment to do, so.
Mr. Legess?
I had heard previously that as part of the plan to get through the March payroll that we were gonna defer the IMRF payments. We're not gonna do that now, we're gonna go ahead and make those?
At this point, it doesn't look like we're gonna have to, but we'll reserve that until we see what happens for June. That would be the month, and that decision would have to be made by the 20th of May. So, because that's when it comes in for June.
So the 1 million we're gonna borrow from the highway department is gonna be enough to get through the 3 payrolls?
It appears so. You know, with the fluctuations of cash, you know, you gotta kinda watch it from time to time. One of the reasons we're limiting credit card usage, because that hits us immediately. We're trying to be able to predict this a little bit better. But if it comes down to it, we will. And just to let you know that our pension fund and our tort fund are actually above the negative for the first time in years. So we've actually got those straightened out. Now we're gonna work on the general fund. That's something for the next finance committee meeting when we talk about that. But on the concern on the pension fund and making those payments, we're actually above water now on those funds. So I just wanna make sure the committee knew that.
Yep. 7. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. I know your estimation on the vendor payments is going down significantly to 811 every month. Is that just part of the seasons, just the vendor payments going down, or are we essentially, for lack of a better word, kicking the can on some vendor payments in the short term in order to make those budgets? Because I know it's great that the AP is going down every year. Are we going to see that sort of spike back up when I see, you know, vendor payments? And I know why they're big right after tax anticipation season or tax payment season, but 811 seems low. I know that's an estimation. Is that essentially what we're doing? Is we're not going to be paying out as much, holding back some of that cash to make it through? Right. So we're going to see accounts payable spike back up again, unfortunately.
Yes, that's a good question. That is, again, a calculation. 811 is a very minimum amount of claims, and a calculation to see with everything, you know, to get through. So the accounts payable total will continue to grow.
Okay, and I just want to make sure the whole committee is aware of that. I mean, we are essentially dropping that down to bare bones, so we have the cash. So even if with interfund borrowing, you know, we're still increasing our accounts payable pretty significantly.
Very tight, and it will still be difficult to pay, you know, all of our vendors on a regular until we get to June and July.
Oh, no, thank you, sir. And then I think a couple months ago we talked about, I just want to confirm that the miscellaneous vendor payments also includes our health insurance premiums. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Have we ever been able to break that out? Because we break out payroll, we break out IMRF. If we could break out sort of the health insurance payroll, we'd have a sort of an idea of how much percentage of this budget is going to total employee compensation. And I know this is, we get rebates from the state, and some are funded through grants, you know, but we're looking at $25 million in total payroll, over $5 million in IMRF payments for the year. That's $30 million right there. And again, I understand not all of it comes out of the general fund, but a lot of it does. So if we can get an idea of what our health insurance compensation is, we'll have an idea of total employee compensation, because that's obviously by far and large our biggest expense. You know, that's why our buildings are falling apart, is because that's where a lot of our revenues are going. So if we ever really want to curve that, we have to figure out how we can curve that line, because that's obviously being our biggest numbers. So if we could, is there a way to break out health insurance out of that miscellaneous vendor?
Yeah, the amount that's part of the 811,000, the amount, now understand this is the total bill going out for this cash flow. It doesn't all end up in the general fund because of reimbursements
I fully
and the back and
understand
forth.
that,
But it's $290,000 a month just for health insurance.
Okay.
That is part of the 811,000. But
$3.6 million.
you know, the other insurances, you know, with you know, work comp, you know, when you got the dental and the vision, you know, I mean, all of them are, you know, but it's a lot higher than that as far as the portion of
and
this.
I know you guys, I know you have been unbelievably busy, and I, just like the rest of the board, appreciate all the work you do. Is there a way to get a little closer on that total compensation number? I mean, through the accounting system, so we can pull in stuff like, you know, the dental and all that stuff, so we can just get an understanding of where that's at as a whole.
Oh yeah,
because I think that's going to be very revealing to this committee. Because I mean, we had money problems, we have money problems, and we got to figure out a way not to have money problems in the future. And I think we got to just take an overall look at that. I think it's going to be good for the committee to see, the full board to see, our employees to see how much truly of our revenue goes to employee compensation, because it's very high, especially when we get back into these negotiations with unions. I mean, if a typical company was spending this percentage of their total revenue on employee compensation, they'd be out of business 6 years ago. So I think we need to make sure that's published. If anything we can pull together on total comp, I think would be very important, and not even necessarily by department, just overall.
Sure, but yeah, I just wanted to if we pull that out, this isn't all general fund.
No, I totally understand. And that's why I prefaced that.
Cash flow.
I prefaced my comment with that. I understand there's grants and a lot of other ways done, but I think we still need to have a handle on that as a whole. I think it's very important.
Yeah, we could probably, we'll be talking more of FY16 next month.
Okay.
But we, in that same period of time that we've looked at, I know the health insurance or the insurance piece in the general fund, I believe has dropped at least $1 million. It might even more like $1.2 million during that same time frame.
Yeah.
But we've had some of that
saved money, which
on
is
the
great.
budget time and stuff for all the work that's been done in that area.
But even to get an impact on how adding the HMO plan back is going to affect HRA funding and potential resources we could borrow from there. With how that's going to affect moving forward. If that HMO is not a plan we've had in the past, how does that affect insurance funding, moving forward? So.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, we actually do have those numbers. We're going to present them next month.
All right.
Because I took when it came with this other United Healthcare situation. I didn't want to cloud the two.
No,
but the realized savings will be on the claim side of things, what our HRA exposure is.
Yes.
Not just, and then we can't forget that, in that $290,000, we still get 25%, even though that's a pretty rich benefit, that we've negotiated with our partners, but 25% of that is being covered by contributions from employees. So just to keep that in mind. But going forward, it would be nice to see broken out on the report. So as you have our intent to add that to it. We look at it behind the scenes, but I think the committee it'd be good information for you.
Yeah, and not only health insurance, but any of the other ancillary benefits.
And know that we do have those benefits published online.
Yeah.
But they're probably 3 or 4 years old. We don't have a current one, and that's in the plan.
I just think you can't affect what you don't measure, and I know you guys measure it behind the scenes fully, but make this as a board, I want to be accountable for it as well.
You got it.
So I'm with you there, and then even workman's comp insurance has a direct correlation to the number of employees you have too. So understanding that as a line item as well, potentially, just the total benefits as employee compensation.
Makes sense. So, I guess, if I could, we brought it back to finance because the motion in the second has to come from finance to instruct the state's attorney's office to prepare a resolution for this $1.1 million interfund borrow, if you will, from Highway Department with the express, situation that it will be repaid in July at 1.1, excuse me, 1 million, repaid at 1.1 in second position behind our tax anticipation warrants. So that's what we need from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. I mean, you said you talked to the department head,
yes.
Mark. Now, is there anything that could happen in the highway department where he would need these funds before we pay him back?
His statement, he could speak to that actually if he so chooses, but he's got everything planned out for the next couple of years. We can't ask, we probably couldn't ask for this next year because that cash would be needed for projects. Part of the problem with us owing him 3.5 already is that limits his ability to plan projects 2 and 3 years out, bridge work, those types of things. So this is a stopgap that probably won't exist next year. So we have to start planning for next year yesterday.
And I think that's part of the point is, I guess I probably didn't iterate well, is this really is a stopgap measure. This isn't affecting any trend lines. If anything, it's continuing to make it work, continuing on the bad line. I mean, we're essentially borrowing money to, to make a short-term gap. So, I mean, I think it's something, I mean, I honestly, I'm torn feelings between voting for it because it's something that obviously we have to do to make payroll, but at the same time, it's not affecting anything yet. It's not truly pushing the curve down at all. If anything, we're pushing out, accounts payables further, and, it's just, we're going further down the hole. So that's why I'm very torn on this vote. And I understand we're in the situation we are because we're here. So but that's where I'm at. It's not an easy decision, so.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I don't do shameless sales pitches. I try to provide information.
Yeah.
But what we have just described here is not a manufactured situation. It manifests in, if we want to, just to what you just said, if we want to keep what we have, the staffing levels we have, the commitment to the departments we have, that's why there's a sales tax referendum on the ballot. Okay? Because that $2 to $2.25 to $2.5 million that's gained 25 cents per $100 every time somebody shops, small incremental, that allows us to keep going with what we're talking about without having to go to highway department, which won't be there next year. So it's not a fear-mongering type effort to say that these numbers bear out. This is exactly what the reality is. So I just want to make that clear. That allows us to keep what we have. And if we don't have the participation, if we haven't earned enough trust to spend the public's money frugally and wisely, then it will manifest in having to do the other changes that we know are out there, which is not anybody's optimal idea at all of the way government should run in Kankakee County. So I just want to mention that. Thank you.
Just for a point of clarification as well, the 1.1 is definitely going to be a cash transaction. It's not like it's just an accounting entry, so that's one thing. The other thing is when it comes to this, believe me, our stomachs turned, especially mine, as I philosophically am opposed to this kind of thing, but it is a short-term solution. It is not going to be an ongoing, long-term, just make an accounting entry and never actually pay the money back. This is actually going to bind the hands of the county board in terms of making sure that those funds go back to the highway department. And also, Mr. Rogers had told us that this $1 million, he will still be able to deal with an emergency should it arise. So we're not putting him in a situation where borrowing this for 90 days is going to inhibit his ability to deal with an emergency, God forbid one happens. So I just wanted to make that point as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, we've had quite a bit of discussion, so let's bring it to the board or the committee. Would someone like to make a motion for this resolution for the $1 million interfund borrowing? Mr. Legess, Mr. Washington the second. We'll do a roll call.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Legess?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Okay.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
All right.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And go down to the next item then, which is the accounts payable discussion.
Do we have more on that, or did we cover that? I think we covered that.
Yeah, I think we covered it. That one, where we at next?
The miscellaneous financial reports.
Yeah, the general fund summary. The miscellaneous reports, the monthly reports, is the next item. Spend too much time. The other package that you received is the monthly updates, beginning with the HRA account, and then sales tax, income tax, use tax, the bed rental, et cetera. So, if anybody has any questions as they look over that, it's the monthly update for each of those.
Just a quick question.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you. the state with their sales tax when they distribute it to us, are they up to date with that, or are they holding back on us with that too?
No, when they put that number out on the website, it's usually within 5 to 7 days that we receive it. So they do distribute that and use tax. The income tax is the one that they do put out, but doesn't necessarily guarantee when it's going to be distributed.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at these deeds, the sales tax analysis, looking at the city of Kankakee, the February collection from November went down almost 80%. What happened, we know? Is it just...
Yeah, I think a year ago at this time, there was a distribution from the Department of Revenue for funds that were, for lack of a better word, disputed between where they were supposed to go, and I think they were withheld for a period of time, and then it became, the agreement was done and they distributed all at once. So I think that number was a unique number, which, then thus changes the year-to-date percentage and number.
Thank you. A little discerning.
Nothing.
Any other questions on the miscellaneous financial reports from Ms. McCarty?
It is next meeting. It was just on there. We finished it, but we're not finished.
Okay. All right, we are not going to discuss the draft of the year-end report. This is not ready yet. So, are there any other questions for Ms. McCarty? Thanks, Steve. All right, we'll move on to the Sheriff's Department update then with Sheriff Downey.
Good morning.
Morning.
One clarification that I guess I needed to make for myself. Lynn, you had mentioned 39 deputies. I've got 45. So we might want to take a look at that. I don't know who that includes. I mean, I'm looking at just sworn deputies.
Remember on the staff report, we divide them up. Different categories, so you and I will have to.
Oh, that's the difference. Yeah, okay. Well, we're all deputies, so that's why we just count us all as 45, so, okay. ICE payments, some of you had some issues with the timing of ICE payments. I can tell you that as of Monday, ICE is now up to date with everybody else. So we just received January's payment on Monday. So ICE, as well as all the other out-of-county payments, are now realistically probably within 30 days of receiving payments. So that's a good thing. We have limited our credit card use in our department. We do have some who have some mandatory training, including myself. As an example, at the end of this month, the Illinois Sheriff's Association hosts a conference for sheriffs that as sheriffs we are required to get 20 hours of education training each year. This conference at the end of March accounts for 15 of those hours, so to stay up to date on training. There's other mandatory training that the state of Illinois has passed that our deputies are required to go to as well. So I know that every department has things that they have to do training-wise. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Lear. who actually rode along with our patrol division last Friday. I don't know if you have any comments that you want to make about your experience, but
Well, I would say I certainly appreciated the tour that Corporal Huntley gave me, and we went from one side of the county at Essex over to Pembroke, and it was quite a enlightening evening.
yeah, that's a long trip when you're trying to get somewhere where you have to, help somebody. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that. I would certainly encourage anybody else who wants to do that to let us know. Our vest that we give to those riders will probably fit you all better than they did Mr. Lear. Being so tall, he was a little, but that's okay. Exposed. Yes, he was. The other issue on the salary or the employees, our vehicle maintenance guy is taking over most of the duties of Bill Shigaris, who, as most of you know, had a severe health issue and will not be back to work for us. So while we lose an employee, we do put some more responsibility on our vehicle maintenance guy. About ready to pull my gun and shoot him. I would also remind the committee that we reminded at the Public Safety Committee about our payment to CANCOM, which is significantly behind. And every law enforcement agency, fire agency pays CANCOM for dispatch service. And I sit on that board, and every month I go there, and Kankakee County is the only one that hasn't paid. And quite frankly, it's somewhat embarrassing. Because if the other departments look at us and say, county's not paying, why should I? That could become problematic. So I would encourage anything we can do to, at least as the judges will tell even criminal defendants in front of them, just make an effort, pay something. If it's $100, if it's $500, just pay something. To wait till July and be almost a year in arrears for a service that we rely on every day is unacceptable. So.
Ms. Hildebrand, you have a question?
Hi, thank you. Mr. Chairman, how much is that, Mike, that we owe?
I think it's anywhere between 300 and 400,000. I don't know if anybody else can.
I can't. Yeah, that's an accurate representation. We paid July, August, I believe, last month, and we have 2 payments. Another one's probably going to be showing up at this time. I can say with all certainty that we won't be able to pay those full payments until after July. It's either pay people or pay 911, and if they were on the verge of, being out of business, if you will, I would take a direct impact on trying to divert as much funds as I could. But my view is that we will make good. We do have a direct intent to support 911 and are embarrassed also that we can't meet our current obligation. But it's my understanding of finances are able to get through this time. Unfortunately, they're just like the other vendors we have. They're in line. We owe the state of Illinois, I don't know, $150,000 maybe. We owe various entities out there that are in that payable number. They're one of them. So again, I don't like it. Even $10,000 is a lot of money right now for this county. And I think you guys see the numbers. That's why we're going to the highway department. So while I appreciate that, know that it is our intent to catch up in a grand fashion in July, and then it starts all over again, unfortunately. It's just where we're at.
What's the cost per month for that?
Steve, if you have a moment, what is that number? Is it roughly 80,000 a month, 100,000? I think, is that what the bill is? They bill us in 2-month cycles, I believe, correct? I don't have the payables list here in front of us.
Yeah, it is a 2-month billing number at about 140,000, so roughly about 70 is rounding numbers. And then we have an agreement with them that, you know, they also do not pay us for the same time frame. So they do owe us for health insurance and IMRF reimbursement and things. So we do the months at the same time, back and forth for that.
It is very distasteful to have to operate this way, but it is absolutely where we're at.
Mr. Washington?
Let's back up a little bit to the detainees, not prisoners. How many detainees do we have now?
Today we had 110.
110.
We have the second phase of our Nakamoto inspection will be next week, March 6th, 7th, and 8th. And after that, they will begin bringing in a higher level of detainee, the ones that you've probably seen on the news that have the criminal charges that our president wants to send back to the country of origin. So we have, the jail has done an outstanding job in getting us ready for this second phase of this inspection. And I can't, you know, talk enough about the work that they've done. You probably heard me say, you know, the overtime and the mandation that, you know, those have had over the course of, well, since October, since we got them, as we get our staff back to where we were post or pre-layoffs. They have, in which we are getting there. They are doing great work, and it's so ICE is happy with us, the Chicago office is happy with us, Washington DC is happy with us, and we are, as I think I've told some of you, we are working with the airport. They literally want to start using our airport, but there's going to be some requirement for some upgrades to the runway that they're working on at both the state level and the federal level. So it's very positive right now. So now that could change in 4 years, but right now we might as well take advantage of it.
Thank you.
The only other thing I'd mention before we talk about the other item on the agenda would be the quarter-cent sales tax, and I hope that as we don't bring it up very often, I would hope that we are out there pushing for it, and I think it's vital. I think we just heard from our finance director, the county board chairman, the importance of what that sales tax would mean to us as a county as a whole, and to law enforcement and public safety in general in the county. So I would hope that we continue, and as the chairman has told people, if you tell 20 people and they tell 20 people and continue to tell those people to get on board, and you know, the sunset clause, there's some positive things out of this referendum that I think people are at least somewhat happy with, the fact that there is an end in sight. And so I would remind everybody to tell your family, tell your friends, tell everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, the impact of the quarter percent sales tax on the ICE program, what's the correlation there?
I don't know if there is one. I don't think, you know, ICE, I think at some point, you know, ICE is not the end-all be-all of our financial issues. Without a doubt, I think everybody realizes that. I think it helps, but I don't think it's not going to get us out of a $4 million hole, at least anytime soon.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, if the quarter percent tax was not passed, does that affect us taking in detainees because of staffing?
That'll depend on how much the board decides to give me in my budget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, appreciate all you do. I want to back up to the training. You said you had 15 officers that have to go to training. Does that mean that they're not going to be on the road? Because I'm an advocate for more patrolmen, and I would hate to see us do some training and take guys off the street. So could you explain, like, your training, do they do it in-house? Do they have to go someplace?
We do it in-house
Okay.
while they're on duty, which saves overtime. So
Okay.
they're on duty, they may be in a training for 2 hours, which, yeah, it would take them off the street for a couple hours. However, they are available if something happens, they can still respond.
Okay, all right. So you've got a training, your trainer comes to you, or you guys do it?
We have some in-house trainers.
Okay.
And then we have some outside trainers that come to us.
So it's probably not gonna cost us anything other than just the,
Not much.
just the
Minimal.
exposure on the street?
Unless there is training. Unfortunately, mine is in Peoria that, for 2 days that, so I'll be gone, obviously out of the office for those 2 days. But other than that, most of it's done in-house.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's it. The only other thing, I think the second thing on the agenda is the Hopkins Park intergovernmental agreement. This was, I think, moved along from the Criminal Justice Committee. Yeah, there's 2 actually. One's the Village of Hopkins Park, and I think the other one's Pembroke Township. This is for police service, additional police service in the Village of Hopkins Park and Pembroke Township for 9 man-hours per week. And the rate is similar to the other contracts that we have at $55. We've worked along with our state's attorney and Mayor Hodge, and I think as Aisha Shields mentioned at the start of the meeting, I think it's imperative that we get more of a police presence out there at a cost that will be paid for by the residents of Hopkins Park and Pembroke Township. I can tell you that not this past Sunday, last Sunday, a week ago Sunday, there was a shooting around the Citgo with an offender with an AR-15. And we had heard that there was going to be more, so we called overtime and sent an additional 2-man car out to that area for the rest of the day. Basically, we actually found the car, found the offender, and where they took us in a chase resulted in the offender's car getting stuck, our car getting stuck, and the offender getting away. However, we do have enough information to know who that is, but having that extra car out there assisted us in being able to identify who that was, and it also kept the citizens out in that area safer. So, and that's our job. So.
Mr. Payton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's possible, in order to move this issue, that we combine the 2 resolutions and intergovernmental agreement together, does that make sense?
I'd like to defer to Mr. Lear as a parliamentarian on this, because of his past experience. Can we have a motion to combine? And substantially, they're the same agreement except for the dollars and cents.
Right.
So should we
That's
vote
all-
on these separate?
That's all the same. It's
Right.
On the first page of the intergovernmental agreement, it says the Village of Hopkins Park and Pembroke Township for 9 hours. So it already technically is combined.
Okay.
And the amount is on the second page at $55.
So then a motion to combine and approve would be in order, then discussion.
Mr. Scott? Your question?
Motion
Sir?
to combine and approve.
Okay. Mr. Serio has a motion on the floor. Would someone like to second that?
Second.
Mr. Payton?
Give me voice.
Please. All right. Any further discussion? Mr. Scott?
All right, I know we went over this before, but that $55 is based off regular time?
That $55 is based on an average of regular time.
An average of regular time?
Including benefits,
Okay.
everything, car.
But what it doesn't take into account is if that's done on overtime.
Does not.
Or it pushes that deputy into overtime.
Does not.
So, how different would the calculations be based off that?
We would have to calculate the average overtime rate.
Okay.
And
I've done that, actually.
And
I've
at
done
some
that.
point, you make it unaffordable.
No,
Yeah.
this is a service we need to provide. I'm
No
fully
doubt.
aware of that.
No
I
doubt.
just didn't know if.
I can tell you, just based on a little bit of history, because we did the same thing for Enbridge over the course of a year and a half, and the end result of Enbridge was us receiving about $10,000 to $15,000 more than what it cost us.
And now total with all our contracts direct to townships or small towns, do we, like, cumulatively, how many hours roughly is that, say a week or a month? Reason I ask that, is there any way to designate an officer to fulfill all those contracts, or 2 officers depending on the number of hours, so that it's easier to track, apple to apple?
Our first objective is to do all of these contracts with regular time.
Okay.
That is, if we have enough, which isn't all the time, but if we do have enough on duty, then we don't have to utilize overtime. So that's first and foremost. I mean, it's a priority thing. Once the need comes up, to put an individual guy, and that's why we brought back the people we did from Enbridge, where they weren't assigned specifically to Enbridge. They were brought back, and then they filled those slots at Enbridge. So we're not bringing anybody back.
Okay.
Although, as Lynn did mention, we did have a deputy retire that our merit commission is meeting to put together a list to hopefully replace him. But because that all factors into the overtime as well.
Okay,
So yeah, it's difficult to do. So we didn't do it with Enbridge, and it'd be difficult to do it this way as well, especially with the number of contracts that we have.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
In question at Public Safety, Mayor Hodge said he was going to prepay this bill, so I just want to make sure that the chairman and Chairman Johnson know that this will be prepaid, so they will have a credit, so to speak.
And we have tried this before, where and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, where we wanted to put more people out there, and they want police out there. We did it for 2 months and was unable to get paid, and obviously we're still out there. We're out there every day. We're out there on in the east part of the county every day. But as things normally happen, there's never a cop around when you need one. And things happen when we're not there. So the more we're there, the better relationship we can establish, even though we have a great relationship with those out east. And so we're excited to be part of it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like the committee to know that Mayor Hodge has already prepaid for 3 months.
Thank you.
I did so. Speaking to Mr. Scott's comment, I did do the math. If the lowest rung, if you will, on the pay scale with benefits and pension, everything included, math works out, it's actually under the 55. And then if the highest paid employee were to go out and do this detail, it would be just over. So the average would be within line of what's going on. This is a flat fee. It's not necessarily an hourly based. It's an assumption based on, the 9 hours, I believe, is what they were looking at. And once this 3-month period is over, we can take a look back and say, how much time did we actually spend? Does it need to be a little bit more if they want to keep going in this direction or not? So we'll keep an eye on it. But I would support it. I would ask the committee to support it because it's what's right. And if it costs us $10 more per hour and we're out there 9 hours, do the math. They deserve it. There's a lot going on there. So.
And in all likelihood, we'll be out there more than the 9 hours. Obviously, we're out there anyway as part of our regular patrol. And I would assume that, even those 9 hours will probably result in more, but that's for the safety of our community, not because we want to, waste time. I mean, we're out there doing what we need to do.
Mr. Washington.
I commend the sheriff for this kind of commitment. When I lived in Pembroke, you could have drag races on a Sunday down the blacktop because there was no one there. Saturday and Sunday was free day. So anything that improves that is appreciated.
And we're not gonna be, we're not gonna report to the committee the hours that were there, obviously, but they will obviously move around. We won't be consistent. It won't be every day at such and such a time. It's gonna be spread out throughout the week so that we change. I mean, just common sense stuff that, so nobody out there really knows, but yet, again, we wanna be, we wanna partner with the community and have them feel comfortable reporting stuff to us that happens out there that we may not know about, and get the community to feel comfortable in talking to us about things that are going on that we can prevent, bad things from happening.
Random patrols prevent anyone from timing when you're going to be there and when you're not.
Exactly.
All right, any further discussion? All right, we will have a motion second on the floor, so we will do just a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Now this will go to the full county board, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Chairman Wheeler has some other business items he'd like to present.
Thank you. I've already spoken on the insurance policy payment schedule. It came up earlier, so I thought I would bring it up in that context so you'd be able to see what that impact was. I wanted to mention to the Finance Committee, we've had some discussions, or I've had some discussions with the Chief Judge. You may or may not know, when we interfund borrow in special funds, there are some that are relatively available, if you will. We try not to be debilitating to a department with borrowing all of their cash, but obviously we need it from time to time to get through the year. We repay it, and in most cases reborrow it again. It's just the fact of life in the situation that we're dealing with here. But in the case of the Chief Judge, I had some conversations on specifically regarding the document storage and the automation funds for the circuit clerk. It's a little bit different situation with the courthouse. They have the ability to, or the mandate to physically, sign off on that for that usage. So in my conversations, it's not malicious on his part. He just wants to be involved on every dime that's being going in and out of those funds to approve if we need access to those funds. So it's no longer, in the past, it's been the board has acted, I would say leadership has just acted and borrowed those. I have not assumed that would be the case since I took office here. And so we have had some situations to work through, but it's amicable. It's not punitive in any way. We're just making sure that you all know that if in fact we don't have access to those funds in any way, that is a hit on the cash flow to the tune of maybe $400,000 to $600,000 in the next year. So I'm not saying that will manifest, but just keep in the back of your head, that if they do get shut down, that's money that we won't have access to pay the bills in the revenue desert, as I call it, between September, basically December and July. So that's the only comment I had on that. So the other things I had were under new and old business.
All right, we'll move on to the old and new business. Is there any old or new business to be brought before the committee, besides from Mr. Wheeler?
Anyone else? I just wanted to mention under I guess it would be new business regarding the treasurer's move. You'll get this next month, but I wanted to give you an advance warning. We talked about security for downstairs in the past in building and grounds, and we have got the estimate, and it was kind of floored us on how inexpensive it would be to use our existing cameras, the IP ones, the ones that are hooked into the internet, get rid of the old analog ones that are, VHS and Betamax in some cases maybe, the old big boxes on the wall, to redo the cameras, the ones that need to be redone, and to have them reinstalled and everything is only $11,000. That will include that we'll have the ability to send the direct feed to law enforcement. So in those busy times of the year, and even other times of the year, they can check in and look and see exactly what's going on within the treasurer's pay window and other pay windows within the county. So it is at heightened security. We're going to have that availability and have that response time. We still have the panic buttons. We still have everything else. But we want to let the employees here and the public know that they should be able to feel safe coming in here, because we are being monitored. It doesn't stop a crazy person from coming in here, obviously. But we're going to do everything we can to the fullest extent of the resources we have. So I just want to report that's a little bit of money to get a lot as far as the safety goes. Also was alerted to me, a friend called and said, hey, Kankakee County's on the state treasurer's website, iCash, you know, where there's found money there, people, you know, have to repay it. So I just filed this morning to see exactly what this is. It just tells me it's more than $100, but there was like 7 or 8 of those. So hopefully it's $1 million times 7 or 8. Yeah. I'll take it. Hey, if it's $400, we'll take it at this point. So I thought that would provide some levity. But there's also some stuff on there for the recorder and the circuit clerk, so I thought I'd mention that here. They're just old fees, banks, mortgage companies, whatever else. They got stuff hanging out there. So, and as far as Mark Rogers goes, I don't know how far you want me to get into this, but I will say that the LaSalle County Highway Department was leveled by the tornado, and so we're reaching out and going to offer assistance to them. It may be borrowing a dump truck and a pickup truck. Obviously, there'll be a minimal expense for that, but I thought I'd mention it to Highway because it shows, first of all, we're here for our neighbors. They'd be here for us. And so, do you have anything, Mr. Washington?
We did the same thing with Grundy.
You did? Okay. Yeah, so he said, Mark sent me a note this morning, and I approved that because I knew they would be there for us, and the expense would be minimal. Yeah, so that's really it. That's all I had under old and new business.
Steve would like to address the committee.
Just circling back, as I was standing here, I realized I wanted to thank Mark Rogers when I was up there, and I believe that the committee will feel the same way, and how much of a team player and the sacrifice that the Highway Department has made to help us with the interfund borrowing. And I just wanted to circle back and acknowledge Mark and thank him for all that he has done and helped us with.
Thank you.
Here.
All right, any other items to be brought before the committee? If there are none, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Mr. Legess, a second. Mr. Mulcahy, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?